Viewer discretion is advised.
Lovecraft took his medicine and immediately went to bed. He had hoped that the new medications would quell the series of nightmares he'd been having. Suddenly, he heard a crash outside of his residence. He looked out the window and saw that the fog had returned again. Within the fog, something burned brightly. A car had crashed into the front porch of his house, and it belonged to his friend Agnes. "Calm down, Howard. It's just a car crash. The fog is just a coincidence." Lovecraft opened the door and approached the car carefully. He saw Agnes unconscious in the driver's seat. All right. This is real. This is happening. I'm not dreaming. Wait, what? What he feared had manifested itself once again in front of him. Out of the fog came the cultists, with torches and daggers in their grasps. In the distance, Lovecraft saw the gargantuan entity, which he had written about in his stories, rising and staring maddeningly down at him. This is madness! He had no idea how he survived that night, and the visions of his own creations would continue to haunt him. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you SCP Foundation KETER Class Object SCP-4315. SCP-4315, also known as SCP Lovecraft, is a recurring temporary event during which portions of an extra-dimensional space, designated as SCP-4315-1, interact with baseline reality. The event occurs solely in Providence, Rhode Island. During a 4315 event, SCP-4315-1 appears to overlay sections of the current Providence, causing individuals and entities to sometimes cross from one reality to the other. 4315-1's primary anomalous effect, aside from its transdimensional status, is the sudden manifestation of powerful and hostile entities within it, designated as SCP-4315-2. These entities often express elements extremely similar in appearance to those in the fictional works of horror fiction writer H.P. Lovecraft. 4315-2 entities vary heavily in abilities and appearance. Notably, instances of 4315-2 do not display hostility while within 4315-1. However, when crossing into base reality, they appear much more hostile. Upon Lovecraft's disappearance in 1937, his household was investigated by Foundation personnel. A notebook was recovered hidden between his bed and mattress. I've had god-awful dreams lately. I didn't know where I was nor who I was. Everything felt extremely blurry at the moment. There was a being that roamed in one dream. The monstrosity was truly horrid. I will attempt to draw the hideous creature to the best of my ability, despite its true form being incomprehensible to the human mind. I remembered being alone on a ship. In front of me were nothing but darkness. A black sea that seemed to stretch far out into infinity under a rust-colored moon. I felt its presence, miles underneath. Then it revealed itself to me in the second dream. A towering beast. An ancient god slumbering deep beneath the sea. It had a head similar in appearance to that of a squid, 2 long narrow wings extending from its back, and 4 limbs with pointed claws. It rose from the seabed and gazed down upon me with its maddening eyes. Suddenly, there were cultists all around me, chanting in an unknown language. When I woke up, I felt like I was being hunted. I forgot to mention yesterday that the dream just kept getting longer, to the point that I could practically feel myself going mad inside of my own dream. The entity just gets bigger and bigger, its details becoming more and more horrifying as the seconds passed. The beast isn't just terrorizing me in my dreams anymore. I'm starting to see it physically as a hallucination. My mind is clearly far too set on the nature of this gargantuan entity. I had a different dream instead of the same one for the past 2 weeks. This time, I could make out my surroundings. The entity was also a much different one. The being looked like an elephant, yet resembled a leech at the same time. It was much smaller than the previous entity, but its appearance may be even more horrid. The being was extremely fast, dashing along the road, quickly sucking and draining the blood of anyone other than me. I watched my neighbors' faces go pale as the beast stuck its second mouth into their necks and slurped the warm, iron-scented liquid. Needless to say, they all died. As I began noticing that everyone other than me had become victims of this beast, It was already dashing towards me to finish its entree. Or perhaps I was dessert. I'm not sure, because I woke up before it could get to me. These nightmares are starting to really take a toll on my mental state. I'm terrified out of my mind and truly don't know what to do, especially after this morning. It was a foggy dawn. The streets were covered in a thick mist that some might find aesthetically pleasing. I'm one of those people who do, or did. Now I'm sticking with the belief that the mist brings only more harm to me and possibly the world around me. I saw shadows moving, lurking only tens of feet away from my humble abode. At first, they appeared to be humanoid figures, but slowly the shadows that came and left began to grow more and more disfigured until they were now positively inhuman. Entities hunching over in the dark mist. They were undoubtedly the exact same figures in my nightmares. As they continued to come and go, they began to form into things I'd never seen before. They were still horrors, disgusting creatures that made snarling noises in the otherwise silent morning. My mind could only attempt to fill in the blanks, and I sincerely believe that my thoughts were nowhere near as horrifying as their actual physicality. The fog is gone now. I hope it never returns. I can't hold it in anymore. I must confess that these entities in these visions I've been having are those which I had written about in my works. Not only have they invaded my mind, but they have also crossed into our reality, in which case they will undoubtedly cause serious damage. Ever since Agnes's car crash and the fog incident, I knew for a fact my nightmares were real. Since these entities originate from the dreamlands, they're only as powerful as people imagine them to be. I simply couldn't describe them accurately, and that, in turn, helped us, but at the same time, hurt us, if I would have just made them weaker before publishing. Now, the next logical thing to do is to author stories explaining how these entities are actually extremely weak, maybe even taking the form of bunnies. But that's not why people are attracted to my work. Most people know these entities and how powerful they are as I describe them to be. And there's no way that people will rewrite these Dreamlands entities within their heads to make them weaker, because that's simply no fun. Because of humanity's shamelessly appalling desire to write about eldritch horrors and omnipotent killing machines, the yearning for chaos and destruction. This morbid curiosity of ours will bring about the destruction of mankind. One of the omnipotent entities I've written about, Azathoth, appeared before me in my visions. Different people think of it in different forms, but in my visions, it took the form of a giant worm surrounded by shifting constellations. Humanity is nothing but a speck within its dream. Should Azathoth ever awaken from its slumber, it will cease to dream, thus decimating the existence of humanity. It stirred and roused slightly in the vision, which I suspect was what caused our reality to break apart. These entities that come through from the other side are nothing but priests and servants of Azathoth. The fog appeared once more as I await their arrival. I simply hope that my stories are not just for their entertainment, but also as warnings. Soon after, an instance of 4315-2 managed to fully breach containment and enter baseline reality from 4315-1. The entity was none other than the popular Lovecraftian entity Cthulhu. A thick fog shrouded Providence. The gargantuan entity then came shambling out of the fog, followed by several cultists that quickly surrounded the town. Its deafening roar, coupled with the cultists' chants, had a maddening effect on the populace. It could not be fully contained, leaving the Foundation no choice but to only evacuate the area.